Hello, everyone. It's April 17th, 2019. Tiger Woods has won the Masters. Notre Dame Cathedral has burned. Chris Davis has snapped his 0 for 54 streak with 3 hits in the same game. And 2 American men have run sub 210 in the marathon. What a crazy weekend of sports. Is the world ending? We're going to discuss that this week on the Let's Run.com Track Talk podcast. This is your fearless host, Let's Run's Robert Johnson. Very excited to be here, guys. I'm joined by, of course, my twin brother and fellow co-founder, Weldon Johnson, as well as Let's Run.com's ace staff writer, Jonathan Galt. But guys, I'm thrilled to be here. First of all, the world has been crazy the last week. Secondly, I have just finished my fasting for the Health IQ blood test to try to get life insurance for my child. Everything has gone well. I've been fasting. I had to fast last night. I've been trying to eat healthy to game the test so I could pass as a fit runner, even though I haven't been running very much. So glad to be here, guys.
Good to be here as well, Robert. Do you really have no fears? You always say you're fearless. You're not afraid of anything?
I have plenty of fears. I just don't want to admit them to a nationwide, international audience, actually. Folks, if you want to reach us, you can, of course, call in. Unlike Facebook and Google, you can reach a real human being. Call 844, pick up the phone, 844 Let's Run. That's 844-538-7786. And we're going to have some listener audio later in the show. But guys, you guys were in Boston. I'll let you take over here. I'm actually a little lightheaded from not eating this morning. And then I tried to jam in all the fast food. So on the way home, right before this podcast, I had 2 sausage McMuffins, 1 large Coke, all from Mickey D's. But it was a little too much, I think, to pump the blood sugar up.
Wow, Robert. If you actually are a fit runner, you can save, like Eric, our web guy, is going to save up to $19,000 on his life insurance over 30 years because he runs. So go to letsrun.com/healthiq for more info. Robert, you should have had him come to your house and do the blood test. It's been much easier. Wouldn't have had the temptation to stop at McDonald's on the way after.
It was an emotional morning, too, because they had me down listed as a smoker in my 30s. I told the guy that I had like a few cigarettes at a wedding, occasionally, like every 3 or 4 years or something. Somehow that was listed as I was a smoker. So the question they actually ask you is, do you smoke? You should say no. Unless you're a smoker, then you say yes. But I'm not a smoker. Have I had a cigarette? Yes, I have. And I'm ashamed to admit it. Jonathan Galt has never had one, John. We're proud of you. You're representing that Let'sRun.com ideal.
I didn't realize that you remember that stat, Robert, but it is still true. I've never had a cigarette, no plans to have one. But enough about our smoking habits. Let's talk about Boston Marathon 2019. There were some great races. I mean, the men's race was an all-time classic. You had Lawrence Cherono and 2-time champion Lelisa Desisa battling down Boylston Street. They were in an all-out sprint for about 100 meters to go, with Cherono prevailing just at the line. The finishing margin was 2 seconds officially, but it did seem closer than that because Desisa led up just a little bit before the line when he realized he was beaten. But really, marathoning doesn't get better than that. 2 guys duking it out. So that was awesome. And in the women's race, Worknesh Degefa making... She was fearless, Robert. If you want to know fearless, that was Worknesh Degefa taking off at 4 miles, making a huge gap on the field. She got it up to 2-minute, 59-second lead by 30K. And then Edna Kiplagat did make a late charge, the 2017 champion. It was very similar to the move she actually pulled in 2017 to pull away from the field. But she could not quite get there. Degefa holds on to win her first major in 2:23, and she won by 42 seconds. So that was quite a day of marathoning. Weldon, what were your takeaways from the race?
Well, John, let me interrupt here. You called Degefa fearless. I would call it stupid, but it worked out in the end.
Hey, fearless and stupid are often the same thing. My takeaways, sure, we're going to talk about the Americans. 2 guys under sub 210, Jordan Hasay 3rd place, but let's focus first, give the attention where it should be, and that's on the winners first. And John, you talked about a 2-way battle down Boylston Street. Kenneth Kipkemoy was right there as well for probably halfway down Boylston. So it was a 3-way battle, just a tremendous race on the men's side. And you don't see finishes like that before. Sometimes you see 2 guys kind of duking it out, but I've never seen 3 that close. Or if I have, I've forgotten it. So the beauty of not having the world's best memory. I just thought it was a tremendous foot race. And that's what you get a lot of times in Boston. There's just suspense, drama. You don't know what's going to happen. Even the women's race, Degefa gets so far ahead. She has a 2-minute and 59-second lead, I think, at 30K. And we're like, well, she's not done with the hills yet. She's got to finish Heartbreak Hill and make it to the finish. We're sort of calculating, okay, she can lose almost 20 seconds a mile all the way in. But like, well, if she really craters, she could lose a minute a mile, no problem, a couple miles. So there's still always a little drama in Boston there. And the crazy thing was Degefa never really slowed that much. He was running 5:30 miles, but which is kind of nuts. I don't know that we were sort of even contemplating that one, that it was close, because she ends up winning by 42 seconds. But Kiplegat was just sprinting like a mad woman, down the Heartbreak Hill all the way. The last 5 miles are pretty much downhill to the finish. So just great. It was a great Boston Marathon. It usually is.
I really enjoyed the women's race. And I mean, when she took off, I was just thinking as a former coach, like, why would you do this? Like, and I think she said afterwards that she didn't think if she ran that slow, she would make it to the finish or something, because it's going to take longer. That doesn't make sense to me. But if you're feeling good and it's too easy, just wait. There's no reason to go that early, but it makes it more exciting. But I was very worried she was going to sort of not hold up. I mean, I was debating to myself, if the race had been 1 mile longer, would she have lost? And I think there's a decent chance she would have. And the thing that was sort of, and I don't know, there was drama there. And one of the things that was interesting to me was I was watching the race here in Baltimore on 2 different channels at once. So I had NBC Gold, which was the international broadcast, ad-free with Larry Ross and Al Troutwig on my computer. And then I had the NBCSN broadcast with Kerry Tollison, Craig Masbach, and
Paul
Swangard. And it was fascinating. I had to have both on because basically both were almost unwatchable. So if you had both on, you could sort of flip back and forth. And I'm not really saying that to be critical of them. As a fellow broadcaster, I think for the most part, a lot of them do a pretty good job. But just they have 4 races going on at once with the wheelchair races, which they give way more attention in Boston than other places. But it was interesting in the women's race. NBCSN was like anointing Degefa as the champion, while NBC Gold was like worried she was going to blow up. So it really sort of was interesting to me. Like, I'm like, these people are watching the same race and having 2 totally different conclusions on it. So, and I think that, I don't know. That's why, to me, the marathoning, the stats are so important. The storytelling is important. You need to tell the viewer like what's going on, because, just looking at it, it's hard to say really if you're not really paying a lot of attention to it. And to me, there was some drama there as to whether she would lose that. But Weldon says that he doesn't remember a race that close. I have gone back and done the research, and John had mentioned this in our men's recap, that it was the closest finish since 2000. So I went back and watched the 2000 finish, where the top two finishers, Elijah Legat and Gezahin Abera, were given the same time. And I've determined it was a great race. It was actually very similar to this year's race. And Weldon, the weird thing is, in 2000, we were in Flagstaff training for the Olympic trials. You'd think we would have watched that race live on ESPN if it was on ESPN. It was definitely on ESPN International because I watched it in Spanish. So I don't know. I don't remember watching this race, though, until today, or actually last night. But it was a fascinating race. 70 seconds from the finish line, you had the top 3. That was also included Moses Tanui, side by side, 3 abreast, just like this year's race. This year's race, they were side by side, farther apart. It was like 700 meters away versus like probably just under 400 meters away. But in that race, the finish, even though they said they gave them the top 2 the same winning time, I would argue this year's finish was better in the final 100 meters. In that race, 28 seconds from the finish line, Legat took the lead, and he never gave it up. I mean, there was really no doubt in my mind that he was going to win. I don't know how they were given the same finish time. It looked to me about the same distance as this year's race. But Legat actually went from 3rd to 1st. So that was pretty interesting. And Moses Tanui had the lead. It was kind of like this year's race, like Desisa. You don't want to have the lead. If I was coaching someone, you don't want to have the lead. Midway down, just wait, and then go
Well,
late.
Robert, you got to remember what he did in New York. He took the lead with the late kick going past Geoffrey Kamworor, and it was a similar situation. It was very close. He won New York in the fall by 2 seconds over Shira Katata, and the reason he won is because Katata couldn't make up the gap by the finish line. So if I was Desisa, I'm thinking back to that win. That was his winning strategy. Why not try it again? He tried to break Lawrence Cherono and couldn't do it. I don't think he made a mistake tactically.
But Desisa, he came from behind in New York, right? Kamworor had the lead.
Yeah, but the third place guy almost caught him, so he's
well,
probably factoring in. The third guy makes it different. If it's two guys, yeah, maybe you just wait and you're confident you don't kick them. But as John pointed out, New York was pretty unique in that he pulled away from Cam Warrer, and then the third place guy, Katata, sort of almost tracked him down.
oh, yeah, you guys are making some good points. But I'm going to put up both videos in the week that was. It should be published hopefully later today. But it's really interesting to watch, to compare these two. The finish, I tried to time the last 600 when they make that left-hand turn. They say it's roughly 600, but I don't think it's exactly 600 because the finish this year was in 2000 took 133, and then this year it was significantly faster. It was, depending on how you look at it, I think there was two camera angles, so it's weird. You see them turn left twice this year on the broadcast. I want some video expert to tell me. It's like there's a Zapruder film. It doesn't make sense to me. Like they turn left and then you see them turn left again. So I think they're switching from the overhead camera to the stage to the motorcycle camera, but I don't understand which clock I should go off of. Like which one do they switch back? Or anyways, I had it as at least 3 seconds faster for that final 130. I had 130 on one time I watched it, and then 128 on the other time I watched it. So not a surprise. The finish was faster this year, and also the finishing time of 2:07:57 was faster than 2000, 2:09:47. So it shows you marathon has come a long ways in 19 years. I mean, when I looked at the runners from 2000, to me, they looked kind of fat. I mean, it's hard to say, but really, it was a fantastic race. My only complaint was sort of the camera angle. It was hard to view, right? It was sort of out of focus.
Well, no, the biggest problem is they had the head-on angle as they're coming towards the finish, and you need to know what the gaps are. The beautiful thing about the track, running on the track, you can have the side-on angle, and maybe that's something that doesn't always come to play in the Boston Marathon because you're not always getting a close finish. But watching in the press room, I know me and some of the other journalists were frustrated because you couldn't tell how far behind Cherono was relative to Desisa. And then at the very end, it became apparent they were level neck and neck, but that was only apparent quite late. So I'm sure it was frustrating. It was frustrating for me. I'm sure it must have been frustrating for viewers as well.
And the lack of excitement also in some of the commentary. One of them, I forgot which one, was just like sort of, I'm like, hello, we have 3 people sprinting a 600 for the win. Like, we should be really excited about this. So
it was a great finish. And I was just sort of thinking about this. Like Lelisa Desisa, he won Boston in 2013. He comes back the year after the bombing, wins, in 2015. He wins New York last year in 205. Just think about like if this guy's name was like Bill Rogers or something like that. Like he would be a household name in Boston. People would be like, "Oh my God, he just barely lost this year." It's just sort of crazy how, because he's Ethiopian, doesn't speak that good of English. Maybe because he's black. I mean, I don't think there's necessarily a need to go there, but just, I don't know, circumstances, familiarity in sports determine how these guys, how relatable they are, how popular they are. But, he's an amazing athlete, and he just gave it his all, like with about what, I don't know, the last 100, he flails out his arms, trying to hold him off, and then summons again, keeps kicking, and it just looked like he wasn't good enough to sort of hold off Cherono, and he really wasn't. And then he was just sort of dead, like 10 meters before the finish. He's like, that's it, I'm done. So great battle for sure.
You make a good point. Well, one of the unofficial rules I've tried to adopt in the last month, or maybe it's my 2019 resolution, is sort of try to think about these things like, if an American did this, how would we be reacting? And I think that's a good rule to have for the sport. And people would be going crazy. And even if it was Meb, I don't really think it's a racial thing. I think it's more the English and stuff like that. But he is amazingly consistent in Boston for the most part. And think about the drama. I mean, what noticed to me is like he gave it his all, and then you give it your all, and it's just not enough. Like it's so frustrating. It's like it's just kind of like, oh, you want to do it, and then you don't do it, and it's like, when do you crack? And the interesting thing is the amount of money that was on the line there. I mean, it's $110,000 difference between first and third, but that's really not even it. I mean, the appearance fees for Cherono for next year are going to be probably another $100,000 higher than Kipkemoy's or something like that. So, I mean, Kipkemoy, who was third, probably lost, $200,000 compared to Cherono, right? I mean, in terms of appearance fees, easily between here and the next year.
Yeah, because those appearance fees for the majors get into six figures, especially if you're a major champion. Boston, and here's the other thing with Boston. Boston trots out its former champions year after year after year. You have people like Caroline Rotich and Sharon Cherop and Wesley Courier who haven't done anything for years, and they're still getting checks to show up and run Boston every year. So Cherono, even if he's not that great 5 years from now, Boston will probably give him a nice little check to show up and run their race. So the residuals there, I think Cherono is so good that he's going to be on the top of his game for a few more years, but even when he's washed up, he might be able to get a few more checks from John Hancock.
Yeah, it's like the Masters, except they're actually paying them to come back and run the race. Like Wesley Courier, Boston this year, he's not running for free, right? I have no idea how much money it is. At this point, it can't be much, but you're forever known as the Boston Marathon champion, and it's pretty cool that they, I don't know, that they treat them that way. Even Des Linden was saying prior to the race, I'm always going to be part of the Boston community now as a champion. Sure, if she was just known as coming close in 2011, she'd be known as part of the Boston community, but it's not the same thing. She can always go back as a champion. The champions are all there at them. Even Bill Rogers is there. Meb is there. They're all brought in by John Hancock for the elite media press conference. So who knows? Maybe 50 years from now, we'll see Lawrence Cherono back in Boston.
Yeah, and I loved. I mean, look. First of all, let's give credit to how good. I mean, this is only his second major. He got 7th in London, but he went out crazy fast last year. But like how consistent this guy's been. I mean, first or second, except for that London performance, in his last 9 marathons. So 9 of his last 10 marathons, counting London, he's been first or second. Now, some of those were like Hong Kong and Prague, but he won Honolulu twice. He's won Amsterdam twice in that time frame.
Course records in both of those races in Amsterdam and Honolulu. 2 course records each.
2016, he ended it by winning in Honolulu. 2017, second in Rotterdam, first in Amsterdam, first in Honolulu. Last year, 7th in London, first in Amsterdam, now first in Boston. So he's won 4 of his last 5 marathons. I mean, really, really impressive. But what I loved, and I wanted to put this will definitely be the quote of the week that wasn't quote of the day. I thought about making this quote of the day yesterday, was how honest he was. He wins the sprint finish over a guy who's just won the New York City Marathon sprint finish. And they said, hey, Lawrence, did you think you were going to win that race coming down home? He said, quote, not really, because personally, I'm sorry for saying this, but to me, I am poor at finishing races. So I love this because you always think, it's the mind of the champion. No, it's the fitness. The same when Weldon was a crappy Ivy League runner who couldn't get higher than 5th in the 10,000 meters. It was the same person that was clutch at USA's getting 4th professionally in the 2001 and 2003 USA 10,000 meter champions. And was a mental weakling, ended up being mentally strong, but really he was just physically fit. So it really helps if you're fit. And I'm not saying that the mental side doesn't have anything to do with it, but I just love that quote to me because it blows all this sort of stuff, these mantras you hear on sports radio and sports shows that I don't necessarily think are necessarily true.
Thank you for comparing me to Lawrence Cherono, Robert.
You're welcome. Yeah, I'm also comparing my genetics. Even if
well, that's the big question here. Robert and Weldon, you have the same genetics, and Weldon had a better career. So that you can't really go down to talent level on that one, Robert. What's your excuse there?
Well, again, Weldon was, this may sound counterintuitive, folks, but Weldon was lazy in high school, early in our high school career. We had a kid move into our grade. He repeated a grade so he could kick Weldon's butt in track and field.
Eric, if you're listening, you cheat.
And Weldon got a little discouraged. Weldon was used to being the top guy in our grade, and instead he was only number 2, so he didn't train that hard. So I trained more than him, but I got a bunch of stress fractures. Weldon was lazy, and that actually helped him because he progressed in a reasonable manner each year in his mileage and became better than me. And then once you become good, all the girls you get in college for being a cross country runner, I mean, obviously it's hard to catch up.
Clearly Robert did not run cross country in college.
All right, should we turn to the American performances in Boston because they're getting a lot of buzz, a lot of attention. Finally, the sub 210 barrier is over.
Non-Rupp division. We always have to use that caveat.
Rupp is to the American men's marathoning what Eliud Kipchoge is to the world's marathoning. just a level above.
Yes, it's true. So I don't know how many days it was, but an American man not named Galen Rupp had not run sub 210 since.
Meb Keflezighi, 2014 Boston Marathon.
That's pretty crazy. Meb was winning Boston.
And an American-born man hadn't done it since Dathan Ritzenhein, October 13th, 2013. And I do know how many days it was. It was 2,010 days. It's a lot.
That is a lot. I mean, that's crazy. 210, it's a good marathon, but it's not good internationally anymore. It's not. It's like just dime a dozen. It's pretty nuts. But we had Scott Fauble and Jared Ward both going sub 210. Fauble, 7th place, 209.09, and Ward, 8th place, 209.25. And Ward can thank Festus Talam for letting up right before the finish, because Jared just sneaked ahead of him for 8th place there.
Yeah, I felt bad for Festus. That cost him like $1,500. Like Boston, I think, needs to do a better job of marking where the finish line is. They have clocks before the finish line. Did anyone notice that? Like he wasn't leaning. He did. I think he thought he already finished.
Robert, they have a big yellow line on the ground that says finish. That to me is pretty clear.
Oh, okay. Well, I just saw the overhead camera angle.
I sort of agreed, Robert. I wasn't sure looking at him. Like, which of these is the finish? Maybe it's clear if you're running, but for some of the overhead cameras, I was like, I'm not sure he knows which one.
Watching on TV, it was not clear. I'll tell you that much.
Well, I got to say, credit to Scott Fauble and Jared Ward. Those were two big-time runs. They were both talking, especially Jared was saying how he was in really good shape, how 209 was a big goal of his. He wanted to do it. And the conditions were pretty good for marathoning on Monday. I thought if one of them didn't do it on Monday, they weren't going to have many excuses. Yes, Boston can be tough, but also if you run it the right way, you can be pretty fast. Ben Rosario, who's Fauble's coach, said after the race that he would probably say it was about as fast as Chicago, the way they ran it on, or he would have expected Scott to run a similar time in Chicago, I think, based on the conditions in Boston on Monday. So if someone didn't break 210, I don't think there was going to be a lot of excuses, but we don't have to worry about that now. Both Fauble and Ward did it. I think both of them, this was a huge run for them. But if you look at what Jared's done in the past, 6th place in the Olympics, him and Ed Eyestone had essentially hit his coach, Ed Eyestone, also the coach of Brigham Young of the cross-country team, was saying, we thought that based on what he's accomplished, making the Olympic team in 2016 and then placing 6th in the Olympics, that a sub 210 was very possible. He just hadn't gotten in the right race. And I think that's fair because last year, in 2017, he had been injured a lot and wasn't really at his best. And then last year in New York, he got 6th place, I believe, at 212. So Boston this year, the conditions were good and he delivered. And Fauble, I think we knew he wasn't that far behind Ward in New York. He was only 4 seconds back. So if Jared was going to be able to do something special in Boston, Scott would have a chance. And Scott turned out doing something even more special. He beat Jared. Big runs for both of those guys. And I think, to me, looking ahead a little bit now, about 10 months to the Olympic trials, but I think you have to say the 3 favorites to make the team are Galen Rupp, Scott Fauble, and Jared Ward, in part because Fauble and Ward are the only guys right now with the Olympic standard, and that might be hard to get for some of the Americans moving forward. And
John had to ruin the podcast by talking about the Olympic standard. I want to interrupt here. We need clarification by the IAAF and USATF now. Like by the time London finishes in 2 weeks, we need to know if they're going to grant the Olympics trials special. Top 3 automatically go to the Olympics. Because guys need to make decisions, and girls, whether they're going to run a fall marathon. And I think if you don't have the standard, you have to. Even like Galen Rupp, I think he probably could run 2:11:30 on a hilly course in Atlanta, but if it's really hot, if it was 80 degrees, he might not. And it just, we need clarification. This needs to be decided now. We don't need to be, they already announced the Olympic qualifying standard after the year started, which doesn't make any sense to me. So we need to know this soon. But I agree with you. I mean, obviously those 3 guys are the favorites now, but I really wish, if you haven't heard, Chris Derrick just pulled out. I mean, I was thinking he was capable of running a 209, certainly in London. And the ADP guys, if any of Scott Simmons, Kenyan-born guys move up to the marathon, I think that they could certainly be right in that mix.
I don't think that's happening, though. Leonard Correa hasn't shown any interest in it. I don't think Shadrach Kipchirchir is doing it. Not like they have a couple guys. Elkanah Kibet and Augustus Mayo did run the marathon in Boston, and Kibet ran 2:11. I think Mayo ran 2:12. They both ran didn't PR. Kibet didn't PR. Augustus Mayo did, but neither of them were top 10. Kibet was 11th, so he just missed out.
Okay, well, if we're ruining the podcast talking about the Olympic trials, I want to get in a few points. I had a talk with an agent in Boston. It's not Galen Rupp's agent, but the talk essentially was like, will Galen Rupp make the Olympic marathon team? And I told this to John, and John was like, of course he makes the Olympic marathon team. And I'm like, okay, here's the scenario. So currently, as USATF is saying, if you want to make the Olympic team, you have to run under 2:11:30. That is not an IAAF rule, but USATF said it's going to go off the time standard. The time standard for the Olympic qualifying, automatic time standard is 2:11:30. And you need that before the Olympic trials in Atlanta. The Olympic trials in Atlanta being a very difficult course.
Well, or top 10 in a major. Let's just jump in there. Remember, that counts as the time standard.
Right, or top 10 at a major. Top 10 at a major equals automatic 2:11:30, essentially.
And you don't need it before the Olympic trials. You can get it at the Olympic trials.
Right, or you can get it at the Olympic trials. But the question is, like, on that course, can any American man run under 2:11:30? I asked Ben Rosario what time he thought somebody could run. He said, I think the winning time will be 2:13. I was like, your guy just ran 2:09. He goes, I think the winning time will be 2:13. So with that being said, that means there's one guy capable in America of running 2:11:30 on that course, and that's Galen Rupp, if he's 100% fit. Galen's not running that much right now. So that would essentially mean this fall he needs to go out to be safe, get fit, and run under 2:11:30, or be confident that he's 100% fit at the trials. The weather's perfect. Everything goes well. On a very difficult course, he goes out and do it. So there's all these scenarios that we don't want to happen. The other thing to think about is, so we have two guys who have top 10s at the time right now. So maybe a couple others get it this fall. We're going to have 5 guys that going into the trials who have the automatic standard. The Olympic trials is between them and Galen Rupp. That would be it, because no one else will hit the standard. This needs to be changed immediately. And I also heard talk from just somebody indirectly. They're like, oh, I think Max Siegel's going to go meet with Seb Coe. IAAF, please make an exception for any country that wants to have, that has, like, I don't know how many qualifiers we have to have, 5 or 6. We already have 5 or 6 automatic qualifiers. Let us pick our top 3. And also the other thing would be the USATF could go off of world rankings. We'd have more people if we went off the world ranking standard. But the Olympic trials in America on the men's side are going to be completely different than what they were in the past. And also they represent the dreamers, the sub-elite, hoping to make the trials and then maybe sneak through and get the top 3 and make the Olympics. There's a whole subculture of running built on this. We need this changed. We need it fixed. There's my rant.
Okay, so I have one interruption. Ben Rosario said the winning time is going to be 2:13. That counts Rupp?
Yeah.
I mean, how hilly is this course?
I'll play the audio for you.
I've talked to enough people and I've looked at the elevation chart and some people I really trust they just don't see 2:11:30 happening on that course.
Like
so
Scott's run today wouldn't be a 2:11:30 there?
not according to the people I've talked to. Now I haven't seen it myself.
Yeah, what do you think the difference would be on?
Oh God, I mean, this is a net downhill.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things we did in training was we wanted to be ready not just to handle the downhills but take advantage of the downhills. So on that course with so many ups, I don't know, maybe 2:13 wins it. Yeah, but I don't know. That's what I've heard.
Okay, there it is. Ben Rosario saying 2:13 could win the trials. So let's say he's off a little bit. I don't know, 2:12. Rupp's better than everyone else. He's a couple minutes better than, maybe even more than a couple minutes better than everybody else in his prime. So you'd like to think he could run under 2:11:30, but let's say his knee injury isn't completely healed. You don't want to have an artificial constraint on who can go to the Olympics. You want the best guys going, and the best guys in America are the top 3 at the trials. That's how we want it done. That's how our system works. USATF, IAAF, the goal of the world rankings is to encourage competition, to encourage the public to watch riveting competitions. So USATF, IAAF, figure this out. It's not that hard.
Well, doesn't Nike can just pull the strings, aren't they? Isn't it the puppet strings? They control the world and all the powers that be, particularly Salazar. But look, I'm going to have John Kellogg. He's an elevation expert. When I ran my 2:23:13 marathon PR, it was at a Las Vegas course where the first 8 to 10 miles or 12 miles were uphill and then the rest was downhill. And he told me exactly what my splits would be. You got to run the marathon trials back then. You had to run 5:25 mile pace. And he's like, you're going to run like 5:33, 5:35. Just trust it. It'll come back down. And he was dead on. He knows how much each feet. So if we can get Atlanta people to give us an accurate elevation chart, because I was just looking at it, it's got 3 hills of 100 feet. I mean, Boston's hills basically goes up 200 feet total from the bottom when you come down the hill to the very top of the Newton Hills. So I think 2:13 is absurd unless it's hot. But maybe I'm wrong. So we can figure that out. But I agree with you. the trials, the top three should go to the team. I think in the end, most likely the top three will have the time or the standard already, but it's stupid. We don't need to go over this. We don't need to ruin the podcast anymore by talking about this.
It's better for marketing, if it's just clearly presented, top three go to the team. And Robert, you're forgetting it's a 4-loop course, so those 3 hills times 4. I heard there's even talk of taking out a hill at the very end that's possibly on the finish to make the course faster. So people are concerned about this. But let's get back to Boston. The American men, tremendous performance. How about, what do you guys think? Do we move the goalpost? In the past, the American men aren't either getting top 5, but not running that fast. And we're like, all the American men are like, well, we're getting top 5. Look how great we're doing. Now they're not top 5, but they're under 210. And it's like, hey, look how great we are. We're running fast. So is that fair? Is that right? Are we being too critical, or do we just try to find ways to praise the American men no matter the performances?
No, I think there are some people who are moving the goalpost in this situation, but my goalpost was sub 210. I think that was a big issue, and they didn't do it, and now they did it. And I agree, there are probably some guys who, if they had run all their marathons, if every marathoner in the United States ran like Rotterdam and Amsterdam every year, I think we would have had some guy under 210 either in 2017 or 2018. But to me, that was a big barrier to show that they can actually run that fast, and they did it. So I'm going to give them credit for that. But I do think it is a little hypocritical of the people who are saying like, oh, look, we're finally running fast. It's like, well, and yes, they were up there through the Newton Hills. Scott was, at least. Jared had been dropped on the Newton Hills, but they both did get smoked. Let's not like pretend that they were in contention to win this race when the racing really got going. They got smoked on the final 5 miles. And that's not something to be embarrassed by. The guys who win the Boston Marathon are really, really good, but it's sort of, what do you want to say? Like, American marathoning is back. Well, what define back? Like, is back you're okay with running 209 and getting top 5 in majors, or is back we want someone up there contending with Galen Rupp to actually win majors? Because right now, the only guy who can realistically win a major from the United States is Galen Rupp. But winning a major is really, really hard. So I don't think it's necessarily you have to say they need to be contending to win majors to say American marathoning is quote unquote back.
Yeah, great point, Weld, about changing the goalpost. I mean, this is the worst, in terms of place, the worst showing by an American man. Like, we haven't had a top 5 since how many years?
2016 was the last time we didn't have a guy in the top 5, but that was a trials year. So before that was 2015.
But the whole thing, the top 5 never meant anything. Like when there's 5 elite Africans and 2 of them, or 7 elite Africans and 2 of them drop out, like, what does that mean to be top 5? I mean, it means you're the best of the rest.
Right.
Just like your Sarah Sellers if Desi Linden drops out last year. So I've always thought that people could. I wanted to see the 210 just because it is a barrier. And actually, I love the NBCSN broadcast. The woman that did the broadcast, the post-race interviews, I thought she did a really good job. But I don't think she's an actual runner. But I think that makes the question more interesting. But she's like, Jerry was like, I wanted to break 210. She's like, why? And he's like, well, it's kind of a barrier. But if 210 was 209, we wouldn't be talking about it as much. You know what I'm saying? I've always thought that a big reason why we haven't had any 210s recently is because people were running in Boston, which had been bad weather recently. And then New York, a 212 flat in New York is something close to 210 on a flat course. I mean, it's probably 210.30. It's good to see it, but yes, this is not, I don't think that, I think the reason why everyone is the most excited about it is because the way the race played out. They were in the lead pack. They were in the lead group. That's exciting. Even though, as Ed Eystone said, Jared Ward's coach, really halfway should be considered the 20-mile mark. It's exciting to see them on TV. If those Kenyans had gone out, if Cherono had gone out in 62.30 and had won in 205.30, and we never saw the Americans, people would not be nearly as excited about this. So it's interesting. I'm glad they did it. But let's don't kid ourselves that these guys are going to be contending for wins at majors at any point in their careers.
I think, Robert, you're onto something. It makes great television to see Scott up there battling. He was actually dropped at halfway, and Jared was ahead of him. And then he keeps fighting, gets back up there, and he was the final one to be dropped. He was with the leaders at 35K. So that's 4.5 miles from the finish pretty much. He loses 72 seconds. That's about 15 seconds a mile. So, but it's just exciting to see them out there, and you just sort of dream like, oh my God, can they do this? And we've seen the women actually do it. It's exciting to see them. And that's why I think Boston and New York even sometimes can be better than, if you finish 2 minutes behind in Chicago, you were probably, at this point, it's probably equal distant how far behind you are. Whereas in Boston, because of the hills, the race can be tactical, and it makes for better TV. Sometimes Chicago without the Pacers isn't that good, but
Yes, and let's talk about that's the perfect segue into the women's race because the performance of the weekend from an American was Jordan Hasay, her third marathon of her career, her first in over a year, and it's her third place finish in a major. If Salisi Sahin is Mr. Silver, Jordan is now officially Mrs. Bronze. But what a showing! But no one really was that excited about it. I think because she got dropped early, you didn't see her up front. And B, I mean, she's obviously run faster in the past, but to me, given how poorly her half marathon had gone last week, I thought top 5 would be good for her. I thought I had some inside info. I guess I was wrong. And then to see her, to me, like she gets third, but also her post-race comments, she wasn't like Scott Fauble or Jared Ward, happy to be in the lead at the 16-mile mark and then blown away. I mean, admittedly, Jordan wasn't in the lead. She says immediately, I want to run a fall marathon and I want the American record. This is Yomich Kojelcha and Alberto Salazar talk. This is the Nike Oregon Project talk. Put a huge goal out there. Let's hype it up and let's go for it. And the fact that she's talking about that and as talented as she is at the marathon, that has me excited. And I started threads say, let's pump the brakes a little bit because to me, there weren't that many, the women's field wasn't that deep. So third for her wasn't that great. I pointed out on the message board, people called me Jordan Hasay haters because I started this thread. I'm like, look, 2 years ago, she ran a faster first half and a faster second half. So she's not quite back to that form. So I wasn't saying she ran a bad race. I'm just pointing out a fact. People are calling me haters. But to me, her post-race comments have me very excited for the future for Jordan Hasay if she can stay healthy, though. And that's a big if.
That is always the big if with any marathoner, but particularly one who had to scratch her last 2 marathons last year because of injury problems. Stress fractures is basically the same injury.
Stress fractures with women concern me more than they do with men because they're generally related. They can be related to bone density, which can be related to your body weight, which is obviously a whole other story that most male marathoners don't really have to worry about.
Yeah, and the thing with Hasay though is, like you said, Robert, I talked to her after the race for about 10 minutes, and she just viewed this as a stepping stone, essentially. Not most people, Boston Marathon, that is the goal. It's the end-all, be-all. How you do in Boston defines your year, your career, everything. And to her, this was just a chance to get back out there, prove she can run a marathon again, which she very much did. And now it's on to bigger and better things. She's thinking about the American record in Chicago. She's thinking about making the team. She's thinking about medaling in Tokyo next year. I got to say, I think she's got a shot at all of those things if she can stay healthy. Now, part of the thing is, though, to get in really good shape, you have to push your body really hard. Jordan is not afraid to push your body really hard. What she needs is people reining her in and making sure that she pushes hard enough to get super fit, but not so hard that she's hurting herself. She thinks she's figured that out at this point, and I'm sure they have a lot of good resources, the Nike Oregon Project. They've put special inserts into her foot to correct her stride and make sure that she's not pronating too much or underpronating. I'm not sure which one is the problem there. But they're doing everything they can to keep her healthy, and I think it's going to be fascinating. She ran 2:20:57 in Chicago 2 years ago. Now, there's still quite a way to get down to Dina Castor level, which is 2:19:36. She's the only woman ever under 2:20. But Chicago, if she has some male paces or paces to follow in that race, certainly possible if on the right day, but we got to see how her training goes between now and then.
Yeah, I thought the biggest thing for Jordan was she's essentially missed a year, and her one prep race wasn't that great, and she still gets third in the Boston Marathon. And now we can nitpick the field, say it wasn't that strong, blah blah blah, but she ran strong throughout. She's a natural born marathoner. I mean, everything she's doing in the marathon is better than everything she does at shorter distances. She was made to run the marathon distance. This showed it again, just this race. And so it's very exciting for the future. I mean, I'm looking here. She ended up 1:40 ahead of Des Linden. Des is only 2 spots back. So you sort of look at the places like, oh, Des is close to Jordan. Well, actually not that much at the end. So it was a tremendous performance by Jordan. She pretty much was second best from the chase group, which isn't bad. I mean, Edna Kippel was at a whole nother level, but great run. I mean, she's meant to do this, and the American women are just stronger than the American men, but you need people pushing forward and setting the bar, and that's kind of back to the men. I think that's what's exciting about Fauble and Ward is, okay, now the 209's out there. Now those guys are going to start, hey, I can maybe do 208, 207 next time out. And guys like Chris Derrick, who are much faster than Fauble's a 28-minute 10K guy. I think he can obviously run faster than that. But he's bringing it. He's raised the bar. He's now in that top class of American marathoning. So is a guy like Derrick, who's now injured, but is he thinking like, wait, I gotta be able to do what he can do. And then Shadrach Biwat's thinking that and down the line. But the American woman, all right, is Jordan Hasay the top American marathoner right now?
I say yes. She's better than Des. She's beat Des the 2 times she's raced her in Boston, 2017 and 2019. Shalane Flanagan is not healthy. Shalane was the top American in New York last year, and she won New York the year before, obviously. But she's not healthy. She's talking about how she might need knee surgery. We don't know if Shalane Flanagan will race a marathon ever again. If she does come back, she's going to be in that conversation. But then it's Amy Cragg, who ran 2:21 in Tokyo last year, not quite as fast as Jordan did in Chicago. And also she just ran a half marathon at slower than that pace in Prague this spring. So that was a bad day for her, but it's hard to argue that she's better than Jordan at the moment. And then who is Molly Huddle? You know, I guess we'll know more after London next Sunday, because if Molly Huddle and Emily Sisson come out and run some phenomenal time, they very much could say, hey, we're better than Jordan. But neither of those are going to get top 3 in London. The field's going to be harder. But I'm going to hold. I guess I should hold off probably instead of saying Jordan. I should hold off until after London.
Oh, come on, John. We don't want to wait 2 weeks. We all know in sports the hypotheticals and the stuff that doesn't happen. These types of debates are more interesting than actual reality. Fascinating thread on the message board this morning. What would Eliud Kipchoge run for the marathon if he was only allowed to run 100 kilometers a week, meaning 62 miles a week? So, yeah, we could wait 2 weeks, but the big one obviously is going to be Emily Sisson. I mean, I guess Huddle as well. And when you compare, I was doing this in a little 5 minutes of prep work before the podcast. You know, if you compare Sisson and Hasay, it's pretty interesting. They have very similar college personal bests. It's weird. I think that I was expecting Sisson to be a great marathoner for years because her coach, Ray Tracy, told me that when she was in college, look, she's made for the marathon. And then Hasay, no one really saw that coming because she was trying to be a 1,500-meter runner for most of her college career. But if you look at their college PRs, very similar. Hasay ran 15:37 and 31:46. Huddle ran Sisson ran 15:25 and 31:38. So
she ran 15:12 indoors, though.
She did.
Yeah,
but the 10Ks were only 8 seconds apart. And if you look at the 10Ks now Sisson's run 30:49. That's significantly faster than Jordan's 31:39. But again, Sisson just did that. I don't know though. We know that Hasay's made for the marathon. We don't know that about Sisson. We've been told that she's going to do that. We will find out more in 2 weeks. But yeah, right now, I think without a doubt, Hasay has to be number one. Remember, Shalane is 37. So, but the women's trials, I'm excited to hear that Flanagan wants to have surgery because that means she could be in the game for the trials. She needs to have that surgery now though, because she needs to get going. It's not easy to come back from a big layoff. You know, even Hasay showed that you're not quite at your top form right away. So we could have Hasay, Sisson, Craig, Huddle, Flanagan, and Linden. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 big names. Only 3 would make the team. That would be great drama.
Yeah, that really would be awesome.
And I think that you were talking about whether this is going to encourage other people. Chris Derrick, I didn't make this point in the men's talk. He should be improved. Fauble was twice the top 15 guy in NCAA cross country. Derrick was top 10, 3 times, right?
I think all 4 years he was top 10.
Maybe all 4. So, I mean, if you're Chris Derrick, you got to be thinking, hey, if Fauble can run 209, I should be able to do it too.
Yeah, but Scott Fauble's, here's the thing. You got to give credit to Scott Fauble for being a really good marathoner. There are a lot of guys who have run in 27s for 10K recently in the U.S. Well, not a lot, but there have been some. And running 209 in the marathon, very few of them have been able to do it. He's a very good marathoner. He was talking to Ben Rosario. He was crushing all the marathon-specific, the long sessions in training. It's becoming more and more apparent that is his distance. And not every guy, just because Chris Derrick has run 27:31 or 27:30 something, you would think he'd be able to run 209, but that doesn't make him a better marathoner than Scott Fauble necessarily.
All right, should we do some listener audio? Because our listener audio this week is related to Scott Fauble. How about we do that? You guys have not heard this. The listener calls out Rojo and mentions Scott Fauble. This audio was from before the Boston Marathon, but here it is, listener audio of the week.
Hey guys, just want to say, love the podcast. It's great for easy runs. I love hearing the comedy gold out of Rojo's mouth. I think the podcast medium is great for him. He's a guy who can't really type without having a lot of typos. He can say what he wants to say, and then, Jonathan Galt's there to make fun of his factually incorrect comments. But really, no, I really appreciate the podcast. It adds a lot to the homepage. Did want to say, you guys are shocked that people are voting for Scott Fauble. I think you got to give credit to Hoka NAZ Elite, Ben Rosario. They make all his training public, and they really hype up how crazy his workouts are. I think that's the reason why people are voting for him as their top pick. So I think your average Let's runner is following these guys on Strava and seeing all their training and make them fans, and then makes them want to pick them number one. Anyway, can't wait to hear how you guys bash Alberto next week.
Robert.
Wow. I'm stunned. I had not yelled and I don't know what to begin with. I mean, I don't know where to. I had not heard that before. First of all, I love the part he was sort of saying I was entertaining, and I love that part. Obviously, it was a boost to my ego. But then he said I was factually incorrect. I claim that nothing I write is factually incorrect. Everything is factually correct. I try to put the stats. You can present stats to make people think and challenge their views. And he reminded me we haven't bashed Alberto in this thread in this week, so I don't know how we'll have to get that in there because Jordan was fantastic, and her talking about the American record was all about Alberto too. So far, only praise for Alberto, but wow.
I think if we rewind the tape, you almost started to bash Alberto earlier. I can't remember about what, but we might have to go back and check that out.
No, so I say outrageous things so I can entertain, and so to make John look good, folks. Again, remember he's a young, struggling bachelor who's
struggling. Would we say struggling? I wouldn't say struggling.
Yeah, remember last time John was dropping what hotel he's staying at in Alabama? But everyone, John is at a very difficult time. Brighton Hove Albion, his Premier League soccer team, his boyhood team, the team he roots for more than the New England Patriots, I believe. They may be relegated from the Premier League. Let's have a moment of silence, or just we'll talk quiet for a little bit. This could be very bad. We're a small company, Let'sRun.com. We don't have mental health resources, and if they get relegated, John might need a couple weeks off.
Plus, the World Series champions, Boston Red Sox, are currently in last place in their division. But John's had what generation are you, John? Like Generation X, millennial or something?
I'm a millennial. Look, the Red Sox won the World Series in October, and the Patriots won the Super Bowl in February. No one's going to be crying for me, all right? But yeah, Brighton's current situation is.
I'm glad you realized that your entire 20-some plus years of adult life have been just uninterrupted Boston success after Boston success. And I was reading an article about how these employees your age ask for promotions and ask to be the boss after 2 or 3 years. Thankfully, you haven't done that yet with us, but I'm glad to realize that, the winter makes the spring all the more enjoyable, John. So
as an Orioles fan, you would know. Well, I guess the second part has yet to come to fruition, but yeah, you're definitely in the winter right now, Robert.
I'm kind of like the 209 American that celebrates these obscure stats. The Baltimore Orioles folks had the best record in the American League from 2013 or 2012 to 2016. So I know we didn't win any world titles. We didn't make any World Series, but we were damn good in that regular season when it didn't matter. So I know we were trying to talk about the women's race, but we keep coming back to the men's race since we were talking about Fauble and them. And the listener audio, I mean, I guess, John, you read these guys' Strava accounts. I haven't gotten that detailed. So I'm going to have John
I don't read the Strava account.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to have John Kellogg. I'm going to make him get back in the game, start watching these guys' workouts on Strava or whatever. They post them. And also he's going to analyze the Atlanta course. I did look at the Atlanta course, Weldon. The hill is only 4 or 5 times. It's not 12. So I was looking at all of them, but on our graphic, it cut off at 21 miles because there were some pictures or something. Anyway, I know you have not listened to this stat. I've done this research. So Fauble and Ward now are the 20th and 21st American man to break the 210 barrier. Do you have any idea how many Kenyans and Ethiopians have broken 210. I'll make Weldon look bad first. Please determine in your head, John. Like it's kind of like Price is Right. So you're going to hear Weldon's. I want you to write it down, John, on a piece of paper right now. How many Kenyans and Ethiopians you do, so I can see you put it up to the screen, so I know you're not lying about your thing.
Let me get a pen.
Weldon, you think about this. How many Kenyans?
This is all time, Robert. This is all time.
Yes, have broken 210 and
unique Kenyans.
Yes,
or Kenyans and Ethiopians.
No, Kenyans separately and then Ethiopians separately.
Oh gosh, ever?
Can
someone give me like a little ballpark like how many did it last year? Okay, I think I'm ready.
Okay, he's just gonna go with it.
We have 20 Americans, you said now?
21.
20 and 21. Oh, 21. I got to readjust.
Oh, yeah. Hold on.
Let me put that in the computer. Ding, 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 ding.
And do you want to do... Okay. I also have like 206 and 208.
Wait. Hold on.
Okay, and let's do sub 208s. Or do you want to do...
All right, I have my numbers.
No, I can only do 210s. Okay. I'm ready.
All right, Weldon, how many Kenyans have broken 210 in the marathon in the history of the world?
I feel like I'm going very high. 1,012.
John, please put your picture up to the camera so I can see it, or say it out loud.
700.
John has written 700. Okay, so 1,012 and 700.
Damn it, I should readjust now. I'm gonna go. Okay.
Weldon's not gonna readjust. Wow.
No, I'm not. I'm sticking to my number.
Ethiopia, please.
208.
Weldon's gone from 1/5 as many from Ethiopia as Kenya. Wow.
400 Ethiopia.
400 from Ethiopia. Okay. Both of you guys are significantly off. It's the answer. Well, unless my research is wrong, we'll have John fact check this and we'll get back to you next week if I'm wrong. I went to Tillis Jobsha and I thought I did it right and had to sort it in an Excel spreadsheet. And the answer is 454 Kenyans. So that's
shit. I had 550 to begin with and I changed it to 700. Damn it.
Weldon was off by a significant number. So was John, but Weldon was way more off.
It's 100 a year now, though. I knew it didn't go back that far. The marathoning booms much quicker, and it's probably a lot of repeat performances.
For the Ethiopians, Weldon said they're only 1/5 as good as Ethiopia. I mean, Ethiopia is as good as Kenya. He went to 208. Weldon is the winner in this one. It's 187. That seems low to me, like really low.
Yeah, but especially because Ethiopia is more populous than Kenya.
Right. The weird thing, I've always said this. There's always like twice as many Kenyans at the 210 range. I've noticed that in the past when I've done these type of research. But the weird thing is, even though Ethiopia is a bigger country, when you go down to like sub 209, the numbers go down to 126 and 323. Sub 208, 91 and 204. So there's still more than twice as many Kenyans as Ethiopians. But when you go down to 206, and this is what I've always wondered, you always have the battle up top for the golds. And it seems like it's Kenyan and Ethiopian. It's pretty well balanced. It's very similar at sub 206. There's 40 Ethiopians, 47 Kenyans, and 2 Americans. So it's interesting how at the top end of that bell curve, for some reason, it's almost identical, even though at the other levels, it's more than 2 to 1 Kenya over Ethiopia.
You just might have more Kenyans giving the sport a try at that level, whereas the Ethiopians, there might be fewer barriers to entry in Kenya. I'm just spitballing here. I can't really explain it without doing further research.
I mean, there's definitely more guys who run in Kenya than Ethiopia, I feel like, in terms of, for whatever reason, even though the country's less populous. It'd be interesting to go year by year now, like what the numbers were for last year, and see if this overall ratio is the same. Because I feel like now Ethiopian, the numbers are starting to pick up. I
was thinking, maybe that I do know in Ethiopia, like, most of the runners actually live in Addis, and they kind of have to drive out to train. I think there's more. Like, I was thinking maybe there's more roads, and it's harder to find terrain to train on. I was thinking maybe the income level was higher in Ethiopia, and it wouldn't be worth it to be like a 210 marathoner there. But it's actually the opposite. The GDP in Kenya of Ethiopia is only like $767 per person, and Kenya is only $1,500 a person. So no wonder these people. That's why I'm saying that poor guy who got beat by Jared Ward, the $1,700. That's a year's salary over there. I want him to get the money. Jared, please give it up. Your Mormon faith requires you to give it to that guy. He was better than you. He just didn't know where the finish line's.
No way, dude. Mormons are like the hardest working people in America. Jared went full 26.2 miles and got it done. The other guy let up before the finish.
Did he even let up? I feel like he just didn't even know that Jared was coming. But I agree. Whoever makes it to the finish line is better. That's the rule.
Kauchi would have been going sub 5 all the way into the finish. So
Should we have our biggest losers and winners and put Yuki down there and Dathan Ritzenheim? Or
We'll have a separate article on that.
we're going to be rating the Americans, maybe Yuki as well, from A to F, I think, coming out soon. But should we talk about all of the famous amateurs that ran around 3 hours?
yes, who was the best celebrity runner at the Boston Marathon? Our celebrities are probably different than the pop culture celebrities, but it's pretty impressive, right? Especially right around 3 hours. Okay, right around 3 hours. Here are our contenders. I mean, I guess there's really no point of hiding their times or anything, but it's pretty amazing. We had a lot of people pretty close to 3 hours. Could be a new reality show for Boston. Pay-per-view could come to the marathon. Once drone technology gets a little better, we'll trust flying a drone full 26.2, like over the heads of hundreds of runners. The favorite, the people's champion, Joan Benoit Samuelson, as they're now saying. It's a joke. Joan Benoit Samuelson, the 1979 Boston Marathon champion and 1983 Boston champion. But she was running 40 years after her victory in 1979 at the age of 61. So Joni ran 3:04. And she said her goal was to get within 40 minutes of her time of 79, which is 2:35. So that would have given her 3:15. She easily did that. But I wonder if Joni's real goal was to break 3, because she went out in 1:29:55. And earlier, Robert, you said it's hard to come back from surgery or missing time. She ran the Olympic marathon trial 17 days after knee surgery in 1984. That's just amazing. In 1979, she runs 2:35. Then 1983, she comes back and runs 2:22 at Boston. The 1979 time was American record, yet 4 years later, she's running 13 minutes faster. That's almost 30 seconds a mile. That's just unbelievably incredible.
She was so much better than every other American marathoner back then. That's the thing. She was the Olympic champion. Americans were not running 2:22. Like, didn't she break the world record? If she ran 2:22 now, she'd be one of the top Americans. Back then, it was pretty much unheard of for a U.S. woman to be running that fast.
Yeah, it was crazy. We probably should go in order of celebrity status. Then you have Jimmie Johnson, not the football coach, the NASCAR coach, 43 years old.
He's a NASCAR coach?
Excuse me, NASCAR driver. Are there NASCAR coaches? Good question, Robert. And this guy trains a lot. So Jimmie runs 3:09:07 after going out in 1:31. So they were very close at halfway. With the world at large, those are by far the two most well-known. But now we'll get into some other people. Let'sRun.com poster Gene Dykes, 71 years old, and he beats both of them 2:58:50. It's pretty amazing. Guy 71 can do that. And this guy has been PRing in his 70s. Like, it's not like this guy was a 2:30 guy back in the day. I mean, this is nuts. There's a little Runner's World video people posted on the thread. Shows him running. It gives me hope because it doesn't look like he's going that fast, and he could kick my ass in the marathon right now. And Gene went out 1:28:21. So, slightly positive split, but a very good run. So those were the three I first had heard about. And, well, I don't know. The next guy I shouldn't call a celebrity. He's a convicted murderer. Markelle Taylor. He ran 3:03:52 after going out in 1:30:04. So all these people sort of in this group were going out at 1:30 or just around it.
Wait. A convicted murderer? How come I haven't seen this on the homepage?
We have not put it up yet. He qualified for Boston while serving time in the San Quentin Marathon. He ran 105 laps around. It's a certified marathon. 105 laps around the prison yard. He's been in prison, I think, like since 2000, early 2000s. Court records show he punched his pregnant girlfriend in the face, in the stomach, and killed the baby and was charged with murder and convicted. But I think it's obviously is not a cool story. That's terrible, but we all make mistakes in life, right? And then what do you do with the rest of your life? And some mistakes are way bigger than others, but this guy's in prison trying to turn around his life, and running gave him a purpose. And to get out of prison after 15 years and so he ran 3:03:52. It's pretty amazing. So hopefully he can inspire people who have made mistakes in their life and keep going. And to train while serving what was a 15-year to life sentence and be able to do that, it's pretty amazing.
Well, I'm not going to lie. So I was watching the broadcast on my multiple screens here, and they showed Jimmie Johnson. I kind of knew he was a NASCAR guy. I heard he was going to try to run. I thought I'd read somewhere that he was going to run 3 hours. I was like, anyways, I wasn't really know much about it. They show a picture of him. I'm like, that dude looks like he's my age. He also looked like he had a tiny beer gut. I'm like, he doesn't look thin. I'm like, I don't think I could break 4 hours. I'm like, how is this guy? And I have a 2:23 marathon PR. I'm like, there's no way this guy breaks 3 hours. So when he ran 3:07, I was like really impressed. Like clearly he's a real runner. I now want to hang out with him and go to NASCAR meet. It's like we're the same age. Does he have kids and stuff? We could do the dad stuff, and he's probably like got a private plane and stuff. Or if not, he could drive me in his car. Like we could be buds.
Jimmie Johnson, if you're listening, Rojo wants to be friends.
Yeah, we're probably relatives, right? So
Yeah, relatives, everything.
Long lost cousins.
can we make a prediction? Like, talk about pay-per-view. I think people would like to watch me try to run a marathon or something. As we were doing this, I was trying to figure out, like,
Really? Is there really an audience for that, Rojo?
Map My Run, folks. I support the Under Armour. They were bought by Under Armour. So I have these shoes that like automatically record your distance, or you can use your iPhone, obviously, and they'll record it. So sometimes I run with the iPhone. I was looking at my training. Like when I push the stroller, it's like 12, 13 minutes a mile. It's not good. I had to go back all the way to March 23rd to find a run, John, that I ran under 10-minute pace. So March 23rd, there's a badge on my Map My Run. It says it's a badge, and it says top 25% because I ran 4.66 miles. So I think that's top 25% of distance for the day or something. And I ran 9:24 pace. That was like I like shoved it down. Like I probably went 12 minutes the first mile and like either 8:58, probably 8:58 the last mile.
This is killing us.
Sub 9 pace.
So it was killing my
The young Robert, remember when we started this website and we'd like mock the Masters runners and like that'll never be us. But we were mocking like the good master runners, the guys running like 2:20 marathoners. And now you're like bragging about running 10-minute miles. They're gonna quit listening.
Well, no, I just want the young people to realize it's going to end soon. Don't let it go. And my my mother-in-law is like, wow, Robert's lost a lot of weight because I was trying to eat like salmon salads for the last week to do my health IQ blood test. So I actually weigh like 179, but it's still like 30 pounds more than what I did when I raced. And I look pretty thin. Like I look better from a sexual standpoint, I think, now than when I was on.
Whoa. So everybody, yes, save on life insurance. Go to letsrun.com/healthiq. And also, wait, Robert, you're not trying CBD oils. Have you tried CBD oils?
No, will that help me? Will that help my hip flexibility? I can't sit Indian style with a kid at the play group.
It might help with pain management.
Oh, it's good.
Yes. So some people are using CBD oils instead of like ibuprofen. It's helping with some people with recovery. If you guys want certified CBD products, go to Floyd's of Leadville. That's as in Floyd Landis. Floyd's of Leadville, as in the town in Colorado. FloydsofLeadville.com. Use code LRAPR, as in April, LRAPR, to save 10%. These are certified CBD products. You don't have to worry about fake CBD products. You don't know what you're getting with a lot of CBD products. Certified CBD products for athletes. FloydsofLeadville.com.
So, anyways, I don't want to turn it into me, but someone should email me. Like, if I'm running 5 miles once a week at 9:24 pace, like, what could I run a marathon in? I don't think I could even finish. But I had a brilliant point. What else were we going to be talking about?
We got to rank our celebrity runners first. I need the age of Markelle Taylor. He's been in prison for over 15 years, but
He's 46 years old.
Wow. And we have one more contender. I don't know if this guy counts as a celebrity because he ran too fast. And that's Wired editor-in-chief Nicholas Thompson. Runs a 2:34 PR at age 43.
Can we name Nick the Hypocrite of the Week? Hypocrite of the Week. Nicholas Thompson, folks. He's 43. He's almost our age, Weldon. That's very impressive. I mean, 2:34. And this is the guy that wrote a column earlier in the week entitled, where he said, Boston, quote, "It's a terrible course if you want to run a personal best." And then he goes out and runs a personal best. So do you think he was doing the reverse jinx on himself on purpose? Like, I was like, it all depends on the wind. And he's running a PR.
It's pretty crazy.
4-minute PR too. He ran 2:38 in Chicago. So that's some impressive stuff at age 43.
Now, I've emailed him because I'm going to put his email in our week that was. He's given me permission. I was afraid I was going to have to keep him anonymous and say, like, someone who has their own Wikipedia page emailed me and said the following. But now I'm going to put it on there with his name. I'm like, dude, how do you have time to train? Like, he's the editor of this big magazine. He used to edit the New Yorker. And he's like, well, I pretty much just run to and from work. I live 5 miles from work. And he's like, it doesn't take me that much longer to run in than it would take the subway. And that's just it. It's about 60 miles a week. Into work, out of work, boom. 234. Very, very impressive. And I wrote back and I was like, it's fascinating to me, like all these literary types, like you got Nicholas Thompson, Malcolm Gladwell, who live in New York. David Epstein's a runner. There's a guy who's an agent for books who did Field of Dreams, Chris Paris Lamb. All these guys run in New York. And I'm like, they should have the great literary New Yorkers should start their own track club. And Jonathan and I were joking, and Weldon, they can invite you to be a member too with all your journalism at letsrun.com. I'm sure it's right there with Sports Gene and the New Yorker and Gladwell, like Gladwell, Epstein, Weldon Johnson.
I can't even run or write like them.
No, you need to get in better shape than them. So then they at least let you hang out with them and stuff.
Okay, I'll try. Yeah, and I didn't think it was possible to PR in the 40s, but maybe we shouldn't be impressed with Nicholas because Gene Dykes, 70, coming close to his PR, 71 years old. It's just nuts.
All of them are impressive. Can we do the new thing, like where everybody wins the award? I mean, the most impressive, a 61-year-old woman. That's almost the American record. I think it is. It's debatable whether that's the American record I was reading or something close to it for Joni.
Yeah, I think it's between Joni and Gene Dykes for me. 258, age 71. That's ridiculous. It's so good.
Now, earlier with John, we were talking about my body type. Women, if there's any women listening to this podcast, you might want to turn off right now because you're probably going to get angry.
Where is this going?
No. Are you going to deny what you said to me off air?
No, go ahead. Say what you have to say.
John was annoyed. During the Boston Marathon broadcast, they were talking about the body types of the runners, the various body types. And it was during the women's race. And apparently the social justice warriors went off on Twitter and were like, why are they talking about the women's body types? And the answer to me, as a journalist, is, look, it's the same reason why I'm talking about Jimmie Johnson's body type or my body type. Like, it's relevant to running. Like, if someone's looks a little pudgy, they're probably not going to run as well. Or if they look too thin, they might have stress fractures. I mean, people may not want me to talk about Jordan Hasay's thinness or lack thereof, but I don't know. Like, if I can talk about a man's body type, why shouldn't I be allowed to talk about a woman's body type? I know that there's a lot of eating disorders, but we're trying to treat the sexes equally. And there's certain things like that seem to be off limits. It just doesn't seem right to me, John. Like, you were the one that brought this up with me. So you're the more sensitive generation. Explain this to our viewers or listeners.
I don't know. Some women don't like when they talk about other women's body types. I don't have a strong opinion on this. I saw them put graphics on the screen about men's and women's body types during the Boston Marathon. I don't really know if I have anything else to say on that. It's a taboo issue for some people. I don't really have any strong opinions. They discussed the body type on the broadcast. I didn't view it as, I don't remember. I don't know exactly what they said, so I can't say whether it was out of line or not, but they listed heights and weights of the winners from past years, average heights, I think, or top 10.
I've got two screens on. I wasn't really paying that much into it. I did see the graphic that came up on the international feed, and I took a picture of it, and I tweeted it out because I loved it. But they're actually talking about the women's race, and they showed the men's graphic. And I thought, wow, maybe they're only talking about the men's average height and weight because women would, it's taboo to talk about that. And then I noticed if you look at the bottom in really small print, they have the women's averages. So it was kind of weird on that front. But the men's average weight for the elite top 10 ranked men's marathoners, I guess, in the world, they claim in 2017 was 53 kilograms, which is just 116 pounds. And for women, they list an average of 42 to 48 kilograms. Well, 45 kilograms is only 99 pounds.
116 pounds for the men? That seems low.
That seems low.
That can't be right. How much does Kipchoge weigh?
These guys aren't that short. I agree with you.
116 is not, for a man, that's tiny. Even for a marathoner.
Anyways, but can I read? I know we're jumping around here, but I wanted to read a little bit from Nicholas Thompson's email. After talking about his PR, he said, again, he had to start in Corral 1. He was in Wave 1, which started 2 minutes behind the elites, and he wasn't happy about that. Quote, please keep hammering the powers that be on the insane policy of starting the elite men 2 minutes ahead. Not only does it stink for the sub-elites and make the race feel less democratic, it made the splits harder to follow since all the official timing clocks were set at the elite time. It's hard enough to keep your head straight the last couple of miles of the race, but then you also have to deduct 2 minutes from every 5K mile marker. It seemed absurd. Well put. Couldn't have written it better myself. Completely reconsider.
Yeah, it's interesting. That shows Nick was really running hard, because when I'm maxed out, I can't think. So you're like, oh, just subtract 2 minutes, but it's not easy to do. You're just like, you can't even think. You're looking for a certain time, and then you're like, wait, I could just totally see that happening. So yeah, do we need to change? I don't know. If you go to Wikipedia right now, they have the past history. It's like list of open winners of Boston Marathon, but it's no longer an open race. So do they need to change it in Wikipedia? It's like list of elite race at Boston Marathon.
They do.
This was the first year that the men have started separately. The elite men have started separately from the masses, I think, ever in Boston.
I'm going to learn how to edit Wikipedia, right? Anyone can do it, right, John? I can become a little editor. John is going to have an interview, I think, later this week with the winner of the open race. So I will put him they'll have Lawrence Cherono winner, and we'll put the open race. We'll put him there, 2019 champion. We'll put the open guy. He ran 2:18:54. John,
Trials qualifier
2:18:40. Stephen VanGampleare.
We'll put him there, and then below him we'll put an asterisk, really small print, maybe 6 or 8 font. Lawrence Cherono won the race with 60 people in it.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen is the open winner of the Boston Marathon, if you think about it.
He beat how many people are in a wave? 5,000 or 6,000 people?
Yeah, he beat more people than Lawrence Cherono. That's one way of looking at it.
Cherono beat 40 people. It's not even impressive.
Scrub.
It's like when I won the Marine Corps Marathon, my aunt saw the picture of the start, and there's 20,000 people. And she's like, oh my gosh, where did you start? And I was like, well, on the front row. And she's like, well, no wonder you won. So she had a point. Here's 7 minutes of bonus audio we have with the men's open champ of the Boston Marathon, Stephen VanGampleare. We recorded this after the podcast. Also, look for an article on Stephen on Let'sRun.com. Here you are, the bonus audio with Stephen.
So we are joined by Stephen VanGampleare. He just finished 26th in the Boston Marathon on Monday. He was the winner from Wave 1, so the non-elite start, running a huge PR of 2:18:40. That's an Olympic trials qualifier PR by almost 6 minutes. Stephen, congratulations. How are you feeling right now?
The legs are pretty trash, but other than that, I'm doing pretty well right now.
And I guess I'm just most interested in your experience on race day on Monday, because this is the first time that we've had the elite field start separate from Wave 1. What was it like starting the race? What was it like during the race? Just walk me through your.
So at the start, after that 2-minute gap, when I actually started, there was actually quite a few guys that we took it out pretty fast, which just given the downhill start, I kind of expected. So I was doing my best to just kind of relax and hang back. I normally try and just run pretty even throughout. So yeah, those first few miles, I was just trying to concentrate on making sure I didn't get pulled along faster than I wanted to. Ended up kind of settling into a group of, I think there's 3 or 4 other guys. I kind of stuck with that group, I think, through about 10 miles or so, and then a couple of them kind of started to fall off, and then from there until about 16, it was just me and one other guy kind of cruising along right next to each other. And then once we kind of hit the hills, it was pretty much me by myself for the rest of the way. Other than passing by the guys that were coming back to me. The last 10 miles or so were a bit lonely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when you would go by them, you would just sort of blow by them because they were starting to die, or what? Did you ever run with any of the guys who started a couple minutes ahead of you?
Not really. I mean, when it's later in the race like that, and guys that had a 2-minute head start, so to speak, or coming back, they're they're obviously probably not feeling quite as well as I was. So, it was basically just, passing by everyone and not really sitting around actually running with them for any extended period of time.
And when you found out that Boston was going to be starting it this way, with only the elite people starting separately, and then you have to go start 2 minutes later, how did you find out about this, and what was your reaction?
I actually first heard about it because I stumbled across a thread on Let's Run where that was the main topic of discussion, and so I hadn't really looked at any of the emails or entry materials that they had sent out before the race. I've done Boston. This is my 5th year in a row, so I kind of know how it works at this point. So I wasn't really paying attention to it that closely, and ended up stumbling across that thread and went back and actually looked at some of my stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess I'm starting 2 minutes behind everyone this year.
And did that make you mad, or were you like, okay, I just got to deal with it? How did you react to it?
I mean, I thought it was a little bit disappointing that they decided to do that for, I don't know, a couple different reasons. But, I guess at the end of the day, that's, the decision that they made. And I wasn't extremely happy with it, but that's what they decided. So, you just kind of have to go out and deal with it.
Do you think your race would have been different on had you all started together and with the elite start?
I mean, the main difference, the way I see it, is, obviously there were plenty of guys that made it into the elite field that I ended up beating. There's also plenty in the elite field that I didn't beat. So really the difference to me would have been had the normal field started at the same time as the elite field. I think it probably would have just allowed for a bigger pack to run with throughout the majority of that race, instead of, really just, especially over those last 10 miles, just kind of trying to hang on by myself. And, I think everyone that runs knows that if you've got a nice pack to cruise along with, it definitely helps a lot. So, I think that's probably the biggest difference that I could see. But,
well, I'm glad that you made the best of that situation, Stephen. Still getting the Olympic trials qualifier. That's a huge deal, obviously, and a massive PR. So really impressive running, and appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today. If you want to hear more from Stephen, we're going to have an interview up on letsrun.com and an article coming shortly after this podcast posted. So stay tuned for that. But thanks for the time, Stephen.
Yeah, thank you.
And back to the 3-hour marathoners, our prison guy, Markelle Taylor. He had to get a charity bib because he qualified too late after the date. So he was like, and the charities guys start farther back in different waves. So he was like navigating all these 5-hour marathoners. So probably wouldn't have made a 4-minute difference.
Do we know what charity he ran for?
We could look it up.
It's just fascinating, to think about, running next to a murder and stuff. I've actually spent like a week in time in Kenya with a murder. We were on a trip with like 5 or 6 people for charity. I donated a cow and a half. Let's Run. And then we had like 5 cows to donate to the people. And they had 6 people show up. I don't know if it was a scam to get us to give more. It's like, they're like, you choose which 5, get the cow. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And they had them all there lined up in their Sunday best dressed. So we ended up buying another cow. But anyways, there was a guy there that was just the whole week. He seemed like the sweetest human being. And then I found out he had murdered someone when he was like 19, 20 years old. It blew my mind. It makes me think totally different about everything and rehabilitation and everything. Like I would have had no problem. Before I knew this, like he could have babysat, he could have done whatever. He was a really gentle old man. And when he was in his 20s and his wife or partner had left for somebody else and was with somebody else, he didn't react well to it. Kind of crazy to think about.
Markelle ran for the Urban League of Eastern Massachusetts.
Good. Like, that's an appropriate charity. I don't know why I wanted it to be like something that could help, people not prevent, go down his path. So we did a lot of Boston talk. Do we need to talk about the doper that sent the French national record? Anything else this week, or should we call it a show and get writing on our A to F rankings of the Americans?
I think we should now that you bring her up, Clémence Calvin of France, who, this is a strange story. She was in Morocco and refused to submit to a doping test. That's the story the French Anti-Doping Federation is saying. Calvin is saying that people from the French, that basically the drug testers showed up, tried to identify themselves as police. They were not police, they were drug testers, and that there was a confrontation between them. She's trying to sue them because they were getting quote unquote violent with her, and she essentially appealed that the fact that she wasn't tested. She said that it wasn't fair. That's not a fair way to suspend her for failing to submit to this test, because the circumstances were as they were, with the testers getting violent, quote unquote, and not identifying them properly as testers. She was with her young child and her husband in Morocco, and so she appealed successfully that she could run the Paris Marathon 2 weeks ago, and she ran 2:23 national record for France. But the French Anti-Doping Federation is saying, no, that's not actually the story. They identified themselves as testers. She refused to submit to the sample. She should be suspended. And right now it's sort of a he said, she said, but it doesn't look good for her to be. I'm looking at this situation. I feel like it sounds suspicious to me that she wouldn't take a test.
Paris was actually this weekend, John. You may not have noticed it just because you were focused on Boston, but and she appealed to, she got an injunction from one of the highest courts in France, 3 or 4 days before the race. It was interesting. A few people apparently were calling her doper in the race, so I thought that was interesting. And actually, Jordan Hasay said in NBCSN, everyone calls her Desi, so it's pretty interesting what people call you during a race. Some of it is maybe accurate, some of it may not be accurate. But I think that, I don't know. I mean, this is me and this is the biases I have, but when I hear that she's in Morocco, I immediately think doper, because they had so many doping tests when the EPO test came out. I mean, it was unreal. And I've heard people. We had a guy living with us in Flagstaff, right? Weldon, way back in the day. He said he trained in Ethiopia, he trained in Morocco, and he said the difference between there was night and day. He said in Morocco, people would openly have needles, just stick a needle in the side of their leg at practice. And he said in Ethiopia, it was kind of like America, whereas, sometimes Weldon and I'd be running around, we'd be joking, if we were feeling good, we'd be like, oh, I'm on drugs today, kind of laughing around, that type of thing. And he said that was kind of what he felt like it was in Ethiopia.
I mean, that was 20 years ago.
Yeah, well, I know, but I'm like, first of all, I just want to hear, why was she in Ethiopia a few weeks before the race? It seems like if I was going to go hide out. Morocco. If I was going to go hide out from the drug testers, I would certainly go to Africa, where I'm much less likely to be tested than I would be in France, probably. That makes it suspicious. John, I think you made a good point off air. John's like, look, there's two scenarios here. If I told you before, which is more likely, that someone goes to Morocco because they're on drugs or to get drugs, and then avoids a test because they're a doper. And if you refuse a test, that's the suspension. Or B, they're in Morocco training legitimately. The testers sort of identify them as police and are quote unquote violent with you, and you're totally innocent. Which one of those is more likely? Obviously, I think that the doping scenario is more likely. I agree with you, John. But I don't know. I can see, does she speak the local language? What language is this all done? I can see someone saying police and doping, and you get confused. Maybe their language
isn't French
English.
In Morocco, right?
Oh well, so okay. Then if there's not a language barrier, I could. It seems less plausible, her story.
The official language Arabic, Berber, but they also speak French as well. So I guess it sort of depends.
If you're trying to say I'm an official, or is it a local doping official, or is it someone who flew in from France? So there's a lot to, the details that maybe we should try to get someone on from Keep next week who can tell us the story. But fascinating, really. Really fascinating.
Are the doping officials going to have to start wearing body cams? Be a little bit problematic, because in case you guys didn't know, if you get a doping test you have to turn, and if you're a man, children, cover your ears, show your penis to the person, and he watches you pee in the cup. So I guess we'd have to turn off the cameras at that point. Maybe it'd be like the cops. I saw some cops in the subway yesterday. They had dogs and was talking about their dogs, and then they had their cameras. I said, hey, are you guys recording me right now? They said, no, only when we arrest you. So it could be the reverse. When they show up for the test, they're recording, and then they turn off when you actually give the sample.
So when we talk about the Castro-Semenya debate and all these people who talk about the invasive, she had to prove she was a woman. Weldon has to show a doping test of his penis. Yeah, we could do the body cam probably before the test, just to show the interaction with the people, and then turn it off when you're actually doing the test.
I think that's a genius idea. Body cams before and after the test, because they always have, when people complain about like Asbel Kiprop, he's saying this is what happened. The procedures weren't followed. I think it makes it easier if you have every tester with a body cam. You can say this is exactly how it played out from my perspective, and you have proof.
Yeah. So, guys, obviously we have London in 2 weeks, but we got some interesting administrative stuff coming up. We're going to have this French case to follow all the time, and I'm fascinated by it. We're going to have the Asbel Kiprop doping case coming soon, I think. And then we're going to have the big one, the Castro-Semenya, and also add in Francine Niyonsaba. Breaking news this morning, Francine Niyonsaba, well, depending on how you read it, but the AP is reporting that she's hyperandrogynous. Not a surprise. Jonathan, Weldon, and I all knew that. I would go and say that if I had to bet my life, I would say Pamela Gelimo was also of this same condition. When you're competing in the women's category, they don't have a penis. So I think that if they were going to compete, if you had to choose either or, they would be in the women's category. But to me, if you're intersex, it's a difficult story. We don't have time to go into that right now, but it is breaking news. We'll be having that story to follow all spring as well. It's kind of a uncomfortable topic to end the show with, but guys, it was a great week. I really enjoyed the last hour of the Boston Marathon telecast. I thought they were riveting action, really dramatic races. It was a fantastic week, fantastic races. So good to see Fauble and Ward under 210. So good to see Jordan Hasay back at it and motivated. Great race, and that's really the appetizer. We're at a 5-star restaurant, guys. We just had a magnificent appetizer. Everything is great. And then the entree is coming out. It's going to be served in London next Sunday. Jonathan Galt will be there providing us all the inside info. Can't wait. Thanks for joining us. For Weldon Johnson and Jonathan Galt, this is, how was I described by that guy in the audio? Charming?
Typos, can't spell a sentence correctly.
Yeah.
Constantly corrected by John Galt.
This is the Princeton grad. They can't even speak or spell correctly, even though I was the regional spelling bee champion in 6th grade. Robert Johnson signing off. Good night, and thank you for joining us.